there's no place like home for the holidays. And no matter how far away you roam, if you pine for the sunshine of a friendly gaze, for the holidays you can.
Welcome back to Horror for the Holidays, a Christmas horror movie podcast. I'm Jay Logsdon.
And I'm Joe Searcy.
And this is the last week. It's winding down of the 2023 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular.
The 2023 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular, Jay?
That one exactly.
Ah, okay.
And so we say goodbye to old friends. Let's think back. We'll have an in memoriam segment about all the people we watched get killed this Halloween. There was all the people from WNUF Halloween Special. There was all the people in the third Saturday in October.
Yeah.
There was all the people in Pumpkinhead. All the people in Trick or Treat. And they're flashing up on the screen right now. They're not really, but in our heads they are.
In our hearts forever.
Yeah. I
think the real slashers are the friends we made along the way, Jay.
I think they are too. The Old Lang Syne is playing in the back. I don't know why it's playing, but as we're all just remembering how eventful of a spooktacular this was, and we have to wait a whole nother year for another one.
Just looking back on the 2023 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular.
Well, let's deck the halls.
But spooky.
Spooky for our last movie as we talk about 1981's Halloween 2.
Wah, wah, wah.
Released October 30th of 1981, which, I mean, could not pick a better day.
At least they got that right.
Directed by Rick Rosenthal, who also directed Halloween Resurrection. So,
see, there's your problem. You didn't have John Carpenter.
Well, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill both wrote and produced. I believe they were also busy writing The Fog while they were doing this.
That is true.
But yeah, they returned to write this. We've got returns of Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Last we saw her, she was battling people on a train.
Some sort of terror train?
Some sort of terrible train. We've got the return of Donald Pleasance as Dr. Sam Loomis.
Also, let's just pause here real quick since you mentioned The Fog. What is with this new contingent of Fog haters online? I go to Reddit, I go to places that talk about horror movies, and they're like, The Fog is an objectively terrible movie.
I've never seen that take.
I don't know why anyone would watch The Fog. It's boring. It's terrible. Then they say something like, Demon Mist is a far superior movie or something.
That's a wild take, and I don't know who those people are.
I don't know, but there seem to be quite a few of them, because I found it more than once.
Are they confused by the 2000s remake of The Fog, and they're like, oh, this movie fucking sucks?
Unfortunately,
well, of course it does.
Unfortunately, no, because one of the posts I read started out with, how could the man who made 1978's Halloween a horror classic bungle a movie so badly and make The Fog?
The Fog's so much fun. Fuck those people.
So I just wanted to get that out there.
But yeah, Donald Pleasance is Dr. Sam Loomis returning. Charles Cypher returning as Sheriff Lee Brackett, and Nancy Stevens is back as Miriam Chambers, who is the lady whose name we forgot when we were doing Third Saturday in October.
Oh, okay.
We've got a cast of new people. We've got Lance Guest as Jimmy, Pamela Susan Shoup as Nurse Karen, Tawny Moyer as Nurse Jill, Anna Alicia as Nurse Assistant Janet, Gloria Gifford as Head Nurse Alves, and Ford Rainey as Dr. Mixter. Leo Rossi, who plays Bud, is Turkel in Maniac Cop 2.
Maniac Cop 2, the best Maniac Cop.
I think Turkel is the bad guy in Maniac Cop 2. It's been a while since we'll probably be getting to Maniac Cop 2 next year, so we'll be able to verify it then. Making his film debut alongside Michael Myers for the first time is a guy named Dana Carvey.
Never heard of him.
He would go on to star alongside Michael Myers in other movies, such as Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I know who you're talking
Ty Mitchell, young Gary, is also Andy Wayne in The Fog. Nancy Keys, aka Nancy Loomis, briefly returns as Annie's corpse, but we will see her again in The Fog and Halloween 3 Season of the Witch.
Okay.
If our friend Matt Dupay is listening, Roger Hampton is Patrolman 2, and he's also Jake in Critters.
Nice.
So if he doesn't have that for his book, he's got it now. Helen Kelly is the uncredited nurse in the hospital. We last saw her as uncredited girl at the theater in Night of the Comet.
Of course, yes.
She's got a lot of uncredited person at place.
Person at place, yes.
And of course, as we mentioned, Dick Warlock as the Shape.
Yes. What a name.
The amazingly named Dick Warlock. Also, both of his sons are in this movie. One of the, I didn't catch who one of them was. I think one of them was named like their character was named like Craig. Or Greg, maybe.
I know we saw definitely another Warlock, at least in the credits.
And then the kid who's carrying the boombox, I believe, and listening to the radio, and then he runs into Michael while walking down the street.
Yeah.
I believe that's Dick Warlock's other kid. This movie sounds like John Carpenter did not have a fun time making.
No, from what I read, basically he was thinking about doing a sequel to this, to Halloween, but everybody was like rushing him along because they wanted to capitalize on the success of the first movie. And he's like, I've got other stuff that I need to make, or, I've already got commitments. I'm writing and directing, and it's like, I can't also direct this. And they're like, oh, well, if you're too busy to direct it, then we'll just bring in somebody else.
Yeah. It was, well, like I said, I think was writing The Fog at the same time, or was working on The Fog at the same time.
Yes. He was working on, I believe, The Fog and I don't know if it was the script that would become Prince of Darkness. Let me check real quick. I had it down in my notes. But yes, he was, at this point in his career, he was very busy.
I also saw that originally John Carpenter wanted to, if he was going to do this, he wanted to set it a couple years in the future and have Laurie in an apartment building. And I think that would have been such a cool direction to go.
So the reason he couldn't work on it was because he was working on The Fog, like you thought. He was also working on Escape from New York, and he was working on the script for The Thing.
I saw this quote about writing the screenplay. John Carpenter described that his writing of the screenplay mainly dealt with a lot of beer, sitting in front of a typewriter saying, "What the fuck am I doing? I don't know." Mm-hmm. Which I mean feels, I don't know, very apt for this movie.
Yes, it does feel like one of those I don't knows.
Yeah. Also, man, the tagline for this movie of "More of the Night He Came Home" is truly awful. I think that might be one of the worst taglines.
Oh, so I had a little note here. So John Carpenter, obviously busy working on other projects, including The Thing. I just wanted to make a quick note that the guy he wrote The Thing with, Bill Lancaster, who did most of the script work because he was busy on Escape from New York, his other credits are The Bad News Bears and The Bad News Bears Go to Japan.
Amazing.
And then The Thing. So, I mean, range. That man has range. And that he only did those 3 screenplays, one more screenplay called Firestarter, and then never wrote anything again.
Filmed in LA again, so, once again, Halloween doesn't maybe look the most Halloween-y that it could for Illinois.
Oh, it's definitely fall. Just ignore the palm trees and the leaves on the ground.
I mean, personal experience with this movie, Jeff.
Personal experience was I watched it once with my dad probably 15 years ago, and then never felt the desire to watch it again.
For me, this is one of those that, like, AMC I think now shows a lot more horror movies in October. Mm-hmm. But I remember back in the early 2000s, I feel like they would just, like, there would be a point in time where they would just show Halloween movies. Mm-hmm. Like, they would kind of show horror movies ramping up. And then once we hit Like I think like October 30th, October 31st, it would like strictly just be Halloween movies, and like this is but I think it would be the original, this one, 3, and then maybe 4 and 5.
See, the only reason I even watched this was because when my dad bought the DVD, it came with Halloween 1 and 2.
But so this is kind of one of those that like I saw like the TV edit of quite a bit. And I think finally actually got around to like watching the like the full cut of the movie, years later.
Well, this is pre-Druid's curse and all that other expanded lore, so he's still basically just a killer.
I
mean, you get a little tiny tease.
Yeah,
of what might happen. But
we'll get into it.
But this is I would say this is a significantly less supernatural Michael Myers than he will be later on.
But where to watch it? Currently streaming on Peacock. I think you can kind of grab it from a couple other streaming sites. Certainly buy it on DVD. I'm sure like you can go to Walmart and buy like a $5 like Halloween 1, 2, and 3 all together or something like that.
Oh, also, quick note: you've seen the original Halloween poster, right, with the cool jack-o'-lantern?
Yeah.
Do you know what they did for Halloween 2? It is awful. You ready for this?
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, the skull pumpkin, yeah.
Skull pumpkin, because the first one had a pumpkin on the poster, so we gotta have this.
I will say, we'll get into it. I do think the opening credits of this one, I do kind of like the pumpkin splitting open and the skull being behind it.
Yes, I mean it's a cool effect in the movie, but I don't think I would have chosen that for the poster personally.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up as much on the poster. So yeah, we'll get into our synopsis here. Haddonfield, Illinois, October 31st, 1978. So it's the same night as the original movie. We basically go through kind of the same events that we ended with for Halloween 1.
It's like all helpful movie sequels. You get a quick recap of the first movie in case you went to this one without seeing it.
As Mr. Sandman plays through the opening credits, which is great. I think it's a nice touch. I guess not opening credits, kind of in that opening scene.
There's just something about upbeat music with somebody killing people.
And I think it is slightly different. I think he shoots him off the front of the house instead of the back of the house.
Yeah, that is a slight continuity error.
And then Loomis, looks down just like in the last movie, and Michael's gone. And so he runs outside and he starts yelling, and one of the neighbors comes out and he's like, "Oh, keep it down out here, blah, blah, blah. I've been trick-or-treated to death." And Loomis is like, "You don't know what death is," because Loomis is always
so dramatic.
Yeah, just the most dramatic man.
Oh, also, I don't know if this is a difference, if they used a different design, or if it's just a difference, like, in direction, like the way it was shot. But the Michael Myers mask does not look as good in this one.
Oh, I was gonna get to that. But no, I agree. But yeah, and then we get the skull jack-o'-lantern opening credits. As it like pans in on this jack-o'-lantern, and then it splits open and there's a skull behind it.
Say what you want about the slasher genre and who's the best, but I think you have to admit that Michael Myers has the best soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was also gonna mention that too. We'll talk about the soundtrack later, but I'll do it now. I do think the one thing I will say this movie has, I think the soundtrack for Halloween 2 is better than the Michael theme in Halloween 1.
Yes. I
just a little more synthy, just a little more.
Well, John Carpenter's like, "Oh, you like that synth in the first one, huh? Well, how about we go crazy?"
Yeah. We get Michael POV walking around with his heavy breathing. He sees some kids trick-or-treating. A dog barks at him. He sees Loomis getting picked up by the sheriff and being like, "Oh, he went that way," and they run off. And he says something like, "I shot him 6 times. He's not human." Michael steals a knife from the Elrod's house. Mrs. Elrod's making her husband a sandwich, and like her back door is open, and she goes in because there's a news report about what just happened. And while she's in the other room watching the news, Michael walks in, steals and takes the butcher's knife off of her block. And then he walks back out. So she goes in to finish making the sandwich and puts her hand down, and there's blood all over the countertop.
Oh, spooky.
Yeah, she starts screaming. We then cut to Alice, who's her next door neighbor, basically worried that Mr. Elrod is beating his wife. And she's talking with her friend on the phone. And her friend's like, well, didn't you hear about the murders in Haddonfield? Like, just down the street from you. And they're kind of talking. And while she's talking in the background, we see Michael walk into her house.
Yes, I had a note. This is the first time you can really see how bad the mask is in this one. And he also, like you mentioned earlier, directed Halloween Resurrection. Do you remember what the mask looks like in that one?
Is that one worse?
Does this man just have a thing for bad masks or what? It doesn't even look close in Resurrection.
I at one point I was like sitting there and I was like, this might be my least favorite mask. and then I was like, but it's been a year since I've watched all the movies. So like, I don't know, but like, man, this one is not good.
It's rough. But I guess since Michael is kind of stalking around the neighborhood, that gives you a chance to kind of build up the tension because Laurie's been taken to the hospital or whatever, and she's riding in the ambulance.
Well, you kind of see where David Gordon Green got some of his ideas for some of the later Halloween movies. Like that scene where he goes in the house and he takes the knife. That's kind of imitated in the 2018 Halloween.
Yeah.
Which eventually we'll get to talking about that, I'm sure.
50 years from now.
But Alice gets I think strangled by Michael while she's on the phone with her friend. Mm-hmm. We then get Laurie being loaded into an ambulance. We're introduced to Jimmy and Bud, and she tells Jimmy, who is friends with like Jimmy is the brother of one of her friends from school. Is the older brother of one of her friends from school, and she basically tells like Jimmy, "Don't let them put me to sleep." She's very worried. I mean, you'd be traumatized too, certainly.
Oh yeah.
Laurie is admitted to the hospital. We're introduced to kind of the rest of the staff: head nurse Alves, Dr. Mixter, nurse Janet, nurse Jill. The only one we don't meet yet is nurse Karen. She'll show up later. And she continues to fight being put to sleep, but eventually they put something in her arm and make her pass out.
Yep.
Loomis continues to search for Michael, and this is where we get probably the most amazing scene in the whole movie.
I knew you were going to talk about this.
He makes the sheriff pull over because he sees someone dressed like Michael walking down the street.
Yeah.
Even though like the Michael mask has like blonde hair, like platinum blonde hair.
It does not even look close.
I want to know I understand, I think in Halloween 6 why people like wear Michael Myers masks. Like, now this is a thing. Like, of course people are going to be wearing them to kind of celebrate, it's a taboo thing.
Yeah.
But like in 1978, there were two of these obscure masks walking around.
I know, right? That makes absolutely no sense.
And so Loomis is yelling at this guy wearing a Michael Myers mask, walking down the street. Telling these kids to get out of the way. He pulls out his gun to shoot the guy.
Well, and you think of all people, Dr. Loomis would know what Michael Myers looks like.
Right.
No, this is not him. I mean, he isn't even the same size as Michael.
And the sheriff like grabs his arm and like pulls it away, and as the guy like runs into the street, gets hit by a patrol car, pinned against a truck, and then they both burst into flames, like burning the guy alive.
Classic.
Poor Ben Tramer. Back at the hospital, Jimmy flirts with Laurie a bit before getting called out by Nurse Alves, basically told to get back to work. Jimmy and Bud get called back out. I think they're going to pick up, I think the body that they think is Michael's. They've got to deliver that to the coroner.
Oh yeah, because Loomis is freaking out because he's like, "There's no way we can know it's for sure."
Yeah, we get news reporters. This is where we see Dana Carvey for one of two times in the movie. He's talking with another reporter. He's wearing like a blue hat. Sheriff Brackett sees Annie's body, and he blames Loomis for the whole situation. Basically, you let him out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Where Loomis is like, I didn't, I tried to warn them. And so, we only get a little bit of Sheriff Brackett in this movie.
Yeah, not too much.
We're then introduced to the Jay and Jeff character in the movie. Security guard Garrett.
Yeah, oh yeah. Big Jeff energy.
He's busy like watching the TV, reading like a comic book or whatever, reading like the funny pages in the newspaper, and completely misses Michael approaching the hospital. and so then when Karen arrives to get buzzed in, he doesn't even look at the screen, and so he completely misses just Michael like walking up to the front of the hospital.
Classic.
Karen talks with Janet, Bud, and Jimmy. We get like the great scene where like Janet's clearly fed up with like all of Bud's shit.
Yeah.
And then Bud flirts with Karen a bit.
I've got Bud's rhyme for our quote section.
Oh, I do too. Michael stalks through the nursery. This is one of the scenes that has always stuck with me is the Michael like standing in the nursery like over the little kids. I've always thought about this scene. Lori is told by Jimmy that it was Michael Myers that attacked her, and she's like, "Oh, from the old Myers place?"
I thought he was in a hospital somewhere.
Yep.
He escaped last night.
And then at one point, one of the nurses goes to use the phone. It turns out the phone line is dead.
Oh no, Michael Myers cut the phone lines?
So security guard Garrett goes to check on the phone. He gives Janet the walkie-talkie, which she does not know how to use.
Well, I mean, come on now. You don't know how to use a walkie-talkie.
He goes out to like the back of the building, and like the first thing he does is he like lifts open the dumpster lid, and a cat just jumps out at him and knocks him into a pile of trash.
Fucking cats.
He then tries to get a hold of Janet, but like she can't hear him. Tells her that someone broke into the storage room. She needs to call 911, but she can't hear a word he's saying. Mm-hmm. He opens one of the security doors, and just a bunch of boxes fall on top of him.
Well, he does have big JJF energy.
Oh, poor Garrett. And then he opens another door. There's nothing in there. He kind of looks around, shuts the door, and Michael's standing behind the door that he shuts and hits him in the head with the claw of a hammer.
Which, I mean, decent effect on that.
At the medical examiner, they're basically told there's no way to ID the body without doing dental records, but it looks like it was probably like a 17-year-old male. And Loomis is like, well, Michael Myers was 21. We have to think he's still out there.
Yeah, which also it's like he might be 17, 18 years old, but Michael Myers was 21. It's like, would you really be able to tell that? I mean, he should be able to tell this is not Michael Myers just by having the suit off of him.
Right. An angry mob is destroying the Myers house. We get a great line where like the sheriff's deputy says, Haddonfield was a pretty quiet town before tonight. The only gunshot you heard was the start of a track meet, which I just thought was kind of a neat line. Loomis then kind of talks about what happened 15 years ago and Michael killing his sister and everything like that. And mentions more about the evil that has consumed Michael Myers that everyone was obsessed with. Two kids approach the deputy, and they're like, "Hey, have you seen our friend Ben Tramer? He's been missing. He was wearing like a goofy mask walking around. We haven't seen him for hours."
Yeah, man, he was real drunk.
And this is where Loomis is like, "Oh shit, that's the guy."
Yep.
Also, Ben Tramer, I believe, is one of Laurie's friends tried to set her up on a date with Ben Tramer in the first movie.
Yes, that's true.
And then we get notification that there was a break-in at the elementary school.
Oh, spooky.
Back at the hospital.
That's where Laurie has her crazy dream about being adopted.
Yep, Laurie dreams about being adopted. And Bud is like the biggest jerk that I believe, quote, Bud is the biggest jerk Karen has ever met. Mm-hmm. He like buzzes a room that no one's in, so like Karen goes to like check on who's in there, and then Bud kind of like jumps out at her. And she's like, you're the biggest jerk I've ever met." He's like, "Yeah, but you like me, don't you?"
We forgot to mention in Laurie's dream, it shows her visiting a young Michael at the hospital.
Bud invites Karen down to the hydrotherapy room.
Oh boy.
And he's sitting in there. He's sitting in the tub. We watch as Karen gets undressed, hops in the tub with him.
Definitely a highlight of the movie.
She starts complaining about how hot the tub is, and Bud's like, "Oh no, baby, it's just me." And then we see Michael in the other room as he twists the knob to turn it hotter.
I don't know about this scene, honestly.
And then my wife said, "Why is there a ability to make it hot enough to scald?"
Exactly. That was my thought when he was doing that. It's like, why does this thing go up to the point where it would boil somebody?
So Michael's fiddling with the knobs to make it hotter. So then Karen sends Bud in to go kind of mess with it to get it cooled down. And I do like this scene where like we see Bud in there like fiddling with the knobs, trying to get it to go down, and then Michael just comes in from behind him and strangles him in the background, and Karen's just completely oblivious.
That is a good one, and also the follow-up where he comes out and grabs her from behind.
Yeah, I love the fact that like we know what's going on, but Karen's just completely oblivious to it. Like I just kind of love that for this scene. So yeah, Michael approaches her from behind, as Jeff mentioned, and puts his hand on her shoulders, and she's like, "Oh, not now, bud." Now, granted, you would think she would know what his hands look like and how these hands are clearly different.
Yeah, and his hand is way bigger.
Yep. And so she's kind of, "Not now, bud, not now." And then he moves his hand away, and she's like, "Oh, don't be like that." Turns around and sees that it's Michael.
Yep.
And then he drowns/boils her in this scalding pool of water.
Nice. And also somehow doesn't damage his own hands at
Right.
all.
Or he's just a psycho, and we don't need to worry about Michael's hands.
I don't know. I'm kind of worried about his hands. Jay, how's he going to stab everybody with hurt hands?
At the school, we see where the window was broken in, and there's a picture with a little with a family, and there's a little girl, and there's a knife stabbed into it. And Loomis is like, "Oh, sister." And then the guy's like, "Oh, and not just the police officer's like, "Oh, and not just that." And Michael's written Sam Hain on the board in blood.
No.
Miriam Chambers arrives and tells Loomis that he's been ordered back to Smith's Grove by the governor.
Damn that governor.
Oh.
I would investigate this brutal murder, but the governor doesn't want to be embarrassed.
I love the Miriam Chambers arrives and she's like, "Dr. Loomis," and he's like, "Yes," and she's like, Miriam Chambers is like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you," and it's like, you literally would have seen her earlier that day.
I say, or at the very most the day before.
At the hospital, Lori's kind of catatonic. She's having some reaction to the medication, they think. So Janet goes to find Dr. Mixter,
but it's really because she was so spooked by seeing Michael
to get him stabilized. And when she goes in and the shower's running, Dr. Mixter's not in there, so she goes into his office and he's sitting with his back to her, and she's trying to talk to him and he's not responding, and she turns I like this scene too, where she's talking and we see part of his face. And he looks fine, he's just not moving, and she goes and she spins it around and we see just a needle shoved in his eye.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And then in the background, kind of mirroring Halloween 1, Michael steps out of the shadows behind her and stabs Janet in the temple with a hypodermic needle.
Oof.
Michael then arrives at where Lori's room is and tries to stab her, but the bed is empty. Lori got up and got out. Jimmy discovers Nurse Alvez's body strapped to a table, and her blood's being drained out of it, and he goes to move away and just slips and falls and hits his head.
Ow.
Poor
damn blood puddle.
Poor stupid Jimmy. Jill discovers that all the cars have been tampered with, all their tires have been slashed.
Who could have done such a thing?
And this whole time Lori's kind of moving through the hospital, kind of finding places to hide, and Michael's kind of also walking through the hospital, and just no one's kind of running into each other. Jill finally kind of runs into Lori, and she's like, "Lori, come here, I'll help you." And then Michael just steps out behind her and stabs her in the back with a scalpel and lifts her off the ground with it.
Yeah, well, that Michael strength.
We then get a chase scene.
Oh boy.
Where Michael proceeds to chase Lori down a set of stairs into the basement of the building, then through a bunch of I don't know, probably the boiler room. There's it's a big piped room.
Something.
Lori thinks she's safe, but then there's a body behind her, so it makes her scream, and it's Garrett's body all strung up.
Ah.
Michael starts making his way towards her, and she's able to barely escape through a window.
And now she's out in the parking lot.
Oh no, we get the elevator real fast.
Oh yeah.
She runs to an elevator, is able to get the door open, and then Michael starts making his way towards her, and right as the door closes, he's pushes his hand in, but he can't get it in time. And the elevator goes up, and Lori runs out into the parking lot and hides in a car. Loomis is now being escorted out of town. Talks about the ritual of Sam Hain, and,
oh boy,
and how they would burn criminals as a sacrifice every year.
Sure.
Yeah. And then Miriam reveals that the only thing that Loomis didn't know, the only unsealed record that Loomis was unaware of, was that Lori was actually Michael's younger sister, and it was sealed to keep her safe. But the governor has just unsealed it now.
It's me, Marion Chambers. I have all the plot information.
And so then Loomis is like, well, she's at the hospital. Where's the hospital? And the marshal's like, oh, about 3 miles back down the road. And he's like, you need to go there. And he's like, I've got orders. Loomis pulls out his gun. Those orders have changed.
Okay, threatening a federal agent. So Loomis is getting arrested, definitely.
And then he's like, basically the guy kind of dismisses him. And Loomis is like, what do you guys do? Fire a warning shot. And then just shoots out the dude's passenger window.
Oh, boy.
So, and then we just see the car like do a U-turn in the middle of the road and start driving the other way. Poor stupid Jimmy wanders out into the parking lot, gets into the same car Lori happens to be in, and passes out on the...
Well, first he tries to start the car.
Yep. Notices Lori, says like, it's okay, I'll get you to safety, and then just passes out on the fucking horn.
Of course.
It starts blaring.
Michael over.
Yep. Lori like pulls him away, tries to also start the car, doesn't, gets out of the car, and like kind of starts to hobble away, especially, and then sees like Loomis and the others arrive. She like yells for help, but they can't hear her. And so as she starts like hobbling across the lot, Michael appears like in the background and starts making his way towards her, very similar of Halloween 1.
Yeah.
So Lori runs up, starts banging on the door to be let in, kind of once again, just like Halloween 1, but this time Loomis answers the door and gets her inside. We think Lori's safe, except Michael literally just walks through the glass in the front door.
Oh my God.
I love that scene too. Just they're standing there and Michael just walks right through it.
That was good.
But I think I've seen like an old like video on like YouTube of just like an old man just walking through like a door that wouldn't, like a sliding glass door that wouldn't open. He just walks straight through it, like doesn't even notice. Loomis puts more bullets into Michael, and the marshal kind of walks up and he's like, oh, he's dead, he's not breathing.
No, get away from him.
Loomis tells him to get away, and Michael just reaches up and slits the dude's throat.
Another scalpel kill.
Miriam runs out to alert the authorities on the two-way radio as the final confrontation between Michael, Loomis, and Lori happens. We get another hilarious scene of like Michael just breaking through a wooden door. Like you gotta like there's like it's one of those doors with like a little bit of glass at the top, and he breaks through that, and then he just kind of breaks through the middle of the door too. He like stabs Loomis because Loomis's gun won't fire, and then he starts making his way towards Lori, slowly cornering her.
Yes.
And then turns out Lori's an excellent shot as she puts 2 bullets straight in his eyes. Reminded me of Butters in South Park. He's always able to shoot a guy in the dick.
No, Butters. Can't shoot a guy in the dick. I don't know if I could do this with you anymore.
Literally, that was my first thought. I was like, man, Lori's a good shot. Man, just like Butters, always shooting those guys in their dicks. They start turning on all the gas in the room because like he's still making Michael can't see, but he knows where Lori was. So Loomis starts turning on gas. That draws Michael's attention away from Lori. So then Lori starts turning on more gas, and so they're able to kind of distract him long enough for Lori to get away. Loomis then basically, like, I think he even tells Lori to get away, and then he turns and he's like, it's time, Michael. And he lights his lighter and blows up the room. As Lori escapes, we see her kind of sitting in a hallway as everything burns, and Michael walks out of the room and then just collapses in front of her as his mask is engulfed in flames.
Good shot.
Yeah, Lori is taken away in an ambulance as Michael's mask continues to burn, and Mr. Sandman plays once again in the background, a mirror of the beginning of the movie.
But he's not really dead.
Well, if you asked John Carpenter...
He was.
Yeah, John Carpenter was like, Loomis and Michael are dead.
But they're going to be back.
I was going to make the joke in 2 years. I was going to be like, somehow Michael and Loomis returned.
Oh, boy, not this again. Well, Jay, that was a good summary of the plot and all, but I think we may have made a mistake here because I watched The Howling 2, not Halloween 2. None of this is really adding up.
I love The Howling 2. That was the first Howling movie I ever saw.
My sister is a werewolf.
No, my brother and I went down to my brother's house when he lived in Atlanta. And we watched The Howling 2, and just the credits, the closing credits, where the woman just keeps ripping her top off.
Yes.
Just my brother and I are just sitting there laughing our asses off because they just keep showing it over and over and over again.
See, that werewolf lady who's the villain of the movie, Steerba, I think is what they call her. The movie was originally supposed to be called Steerba Wolf Bitch instead of The Howling 2.
Speaking of closing credits, though, I do love the black and orange credits. I think those are really cool.
That was a nice touch. thing. Like, I don't want to come off like I completely hate this movie or anything, but there are definitely there's a big drop in quality, I would say, between the first and the second one.
Yeah. We could get there when we get there. Where do you want to start for minutia?
Why don't we talk about how Halloweeny this movie is?
All right, Halloween spirit. How Halloweeny is the movie? How Halloweeny are the kills? I feel like this movie is more Halloweeny than Halloween 1.
Yes, you do see more trick-or-treating, more Halloween decorations in this one.
No, that was like an express, like a thought I had was like in Halloween 1, like I would have loved it if we saw like Laurie taking the kids trick-or-treating and maybe like Michael slowly following behind her in the background. Like we just don't get that in that movie.
That would have been cool. I mean, the first one does have some, like, it's more references to the fact that it is Halloween in the first one, and you see a little bit, but not too much.
Yep.
But this one, I would say, yeah, has more, and but the kills, I would say, are not really that Halloween-y.
Yeah, like I mean, they're just general kills. Yeah. Like, like I said, I remember like watching this movie on AMC during like their Halloween marathons, and like to me, there's like a little bit of like nostalgia and a little bit of that Halloween feeling of like me sitting at home as a teenager watching the Halloween marathon on AMC and handing out candy. And so like that's kind of the only thing that I could kind of like I'm like, oh, it feels a little Halloween-y, but I think it's more that nostalgia setting in than it is really the actual movie.
Yeah. Which I don't know. This one kind of it feels more and less, I would say, Halloween.
Right.
It's hard to describe. But the first one just sets the vibe, I think, better. This one just feels more like a generic slasher movie. Even though you do see objectively more Halloween stuff in this one.
But yeah, I think that's all I kind of got for Halloween spirit.
I mean, there's no guy getting killed by like a Halloween candy or anything in this one, like our trick or treat. So
yeah,
I've seen better.
And like we said, I don't know that we will see a more Halloween-y movie than Trick or Treat. It's gonna be hard to top it.
It's gonna be difficult. We'll have to find out in the 2024 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular.
Halloween costume, favorite costume designs, favorite set choices.
Let's talk about my not favorite costume design. Michael Myers' mask in this one. We mentioned it a little bit. Oh, there's Jay trying to destroy his microphone. We mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but yeah, the mask, it's either... I think it might be a combination of the fact that it is a different mask and that it's not shot the same way as the first one, but it does not look as good. There's
like some flesh tone on the neck, which is really weird, which I always thought, and like, I don't remember Halloween 1, like, it's been a year since I watched it. You'd think I'd remember it better, but like, I don't know, the hair's like really slicked back in this one.
Yeah, he looks like a greaser, and he looks like his eye holes are bigger, the forehead looks kind of weird, the nose looks different, and I think it's also a product of maybe where they shot it, because the harsh like fluorescent lights in the hospital really highlight how cheap the mask looks.
What's the thing from I Think You Should Leave? Like Halloween 1, the hair's pushed back.
Yeah.
This one, the hair's slicked back.
Say Halloween 1, I think as a product of just like the shooting style, because he was more in the shadows, it's not nearly as noticeable what the mask looks like.
Right.
And I think it loses some of the menace and the charm in this one.
Things we do like, all the hospital attire looks really good.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like everyone looks like they work there. I especially love Bud and Jimmy's jackets. Like I think those are really cool.
Dr. Loomis still looks like a crazy maniac.
Yep. Dana Carvey's outfit,
Yeah.
Blue trucker hat, red flannel shirt, and then a blue like puffy vest.
I knew you were going to mention that.
It looks great. He looks really comfortable. He looks like he's a guy who would actually go and enjoy fall in the Midwest, where everyone else looks like it's California.
Yes, that's true. He does look like the only one actually dressed for the weather.
Favorite quotes, Monster Mash?
Okay, here we go. You can go ahead and start while I pull mine up.
I gotta get mine pulled up too.
Oh, all right. I mean, you mentioned this one at the beginning, but is this a joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight. And then Loomis is like, you don't know what death is.
Yep. Yeah, Tommy Doyle's neighbor says that. I don't know if the guy actually has a name. I just have him as Tommy Doyle's neighbor.
I think he's just credited as Doyle neighbor.
How about you? I think you and I probably have the same quotes. because you also mentioned the Bud's rhyme.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do Bud's rhyme for us.
Amazing grace, come sit on my face. Don't make me cry. I need your pie.
Classic. We all love Bud, don't we?
Oh man! And then the other Bud line I have is when Janet's kind of complaining about how Bud's a fucking piece of shit. She's like, every other word you say is either hell or shit or damn. And then Bud's like, sorry, guess I just fuck up all the time.
The sheriff and Dr. Loomis. You know what, Doctor? I'm just about there. And Loomis kind of turns to him and is like, what? And he's like, the point where I'm going to stop taking orders from you.
One thing I will say is like, it feels like there's so much more crazy Loomis in this movie than there was in Halloween 1. Like, Loomis is just always like saying something like foreboding.
He's insane. His dialogue is insane. I mean, he literally holds a U.S. Marshal hostage to drive him back to the hospital. He gets there, and I pulled this quote. Loomis goes, I ought to handcuff you to the wheel, but I have a feeling I'm going to need you in there. Can I trust you? You know, man, I've just been holding at gunpoint. And then all the marshal says is, what have I got to lose except my job?
I forgot to expressly mention it. I mean, we kind of implied it earlier. Loomis mentions how, you know, Sam Hain, they would burn criminals alive. So that's the reason he burns. It kind of mirrors what he then does to Michael at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, I got that quote too. So Loomis is like, did you see the blackboard back there in the elementary school? And she's like, yeah. And then Loomis is like, in order to appease the gods, the druid priests held fire rituals. Prisoners of war, criminals, the insane, animals were burned alive in baskets. By observing the way they died, the druids believed they could see omens of the future. 2,000 years later, we've come no further. Sam Hain isn't evil spirits. It isn't goblins, ghosts, or witches. It's the unconscious mind. We're all afraid of the dark inside ourselves. You know, nice dramatic thing for riding the car.
Yeah, just crazy old Loomis being a crazy guy. Also, you know, our first hint of druids in the Halloween franchise.
Oh boy. A Bud quote I had. Look, Jimmy, rule number 1, never get involved with a patient. Nurses, that's another story. But a patient is no good. It never works out.
Bud's such a star. R.I.P. Yeah, I only had those 3 quotes, though.
Oh, I got one more. This is when Marion calls for help at the end on the radio in the marshal's car. And she's like, Marion Chambers with Dr. Loomis at the clinic. He's here. And the guy's like, unit calling, identify yourself. And he's like... she repeats it, and then he's like, 10-4, unit calling, identify suspect. She's like, Michael Myers, just get your ass over here.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I didn't write that one down, but yeah.
Oh, and of course, the head nurse, men, can't live with him, can't live without him.
Nurse Alves was a mood. Like, it's... Burnt out jack-o'-lantern, brilliant jack-o'-lantern.
All right, here we go. You want to go first or me?
I'll go first. I kind of got the same thing for both, like in a weird way. Like mine are kind of intrinsically tied. Although, like for brilliant, I could say like the soundtrack. Like I said, I do think the soundtrack is better in this one than the first one. But I feel like this movie is faster paced than the first one. But I feel like it's like the plot is more. You know, this is where we get the whole Laurie becomes Michael's sister. You know, everything John Carpenter meant to do in the first one, where it's just this maniac appears and stalks this babysitter, like you know, all these things like that all vanishes in this movie. But you know, almost to kind of like make it make sense. You know, John Carpenter didn't like this movie, as we kind of discussed. Certainly seemed to not enjoy what this movie was, and then it's just like, but this also like established, you know, and then at the end he intends for this to be the end of Michael and Loomis. He was asked afterwards, like, oh, will they come back? And he's like, no, they're both dead. But he already established that Michael comes back. So of course he does. Like, he already made it a possibility. So of course it keeps happening.
Well, yeah. And it's like, that was part of the charm of the first movie, I think, was this killer that's like, you never know where he is. That's the whole ending thing where they're panning like from house to house. Like, he could be anywhere.
He's the boogeyman in the first movie. And now it's like, no, he's stalking his sister.
Yes, he's some dude who's stalking, he's crazy. He's stalking his sister who doesn't realize that she's his sister until she has a dream flashback. and goes and visits him at the hospital for some reason, which apparently she suppressed.
Yep.
And then Dr. Loomis goes from like a guy who seems like concerned about containing this evil character to a guy who's like, I just have to go around town spouting random crazy lines and holding people at gunpoint and then blowing myself up.
Well, and then even like, in the first one, there's even kind of that hint that like, because he's the Shape, like, in the credits, he's the Shape. He's not Michael Myers.
Yes.
Like there's even the possibility that like it might not be Michael Myers.
Well,
like,
see, that's what I was always thinking was it's like, no, this is just like an evil that has taken this shape or whatever. Like they're saying, I don't think Michael Myers really has much to do with it. I think maybe Michael Myers like that very first murder he does at the beginning where he kills his sister. Well, now apparently he's got another sister, but whatever.
Yeah. The sister was born after he was put away. But then his parents died 2 years later for some reason.
Just don't try to think about it. But yeah, I think at that point Michael Myers was gone and then the Shape took over. And then there shouldn't have been any more need to explain Michael Myers' backstory.
Yep. But yeah, just I don't know, just such a weird like
this franchise is rough. I don't know.
Speaking of the franchise, you had a question you wanted to talk about at the beginning before we started recording.
Before I discuss my broken and brilliant jack-o'-lanterns, is this a good franchise, Jay?
I mean, yeah, you like I said, you and I kind of talked about this off the air. I mean, Halloween 1 is great.
Yes, Halloween 1 is great, and it's a standalone movie. You don't need any sequels to it.
And I really like Halloween 3.
Yes.
And it's one of my favorites. And because I like Halloween 3, I also really like Halloween 6 because that kind of ties the whole Druid thing back together.
Again, it's what John Carpenter originally intended was for this to be an anthology series.
Right.
Michael Myers was not meant to be the murderer in every single movie. And then when they actually tried to do what he originally planned in Halloween 3, everybody hated it.
Yep. Even though it's actually a really good movie. But I don't know. Yeah, it is hard. Like I enjoy all of these movies to like a varying level, and like some of them I like more than others.
They're all. If you're a campy slasher fan, you can watch all of these and enjoy parts of them. But I mean, basically from every movie, excluding 3 because it's not really involved in the Michael Myers thing, except like tangentially. They just get worse and worse over time.
Retroactively, almost. Yes. Like we were saying, like the kind of tie in the Druid thing at the end. You could argue they're related, but yeah. No, you said to me you were like the ones you consider worth watching are 1, 3, maybe the Rob Zombie ones,
the first one,
and then 2018.
Yeah, the 2018 Halloween. It's like all the other ones I'd say you could safely skip and not really be missing out on too much.
I mean, for as much hate as David Gordon Green got for Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, I mean, he did follow the trend. 2018 Halloween, really good, a lot of fun. Just it kind of flips the script and Laurie's stalking Michael this time instead of Michael stalking Laurie. Halloween 2 mirrors Halloween Kills. Laurie's in the hospital the whole goddamn movie.
Yep. And it gets, you notice about a 50% downgrade in quality.
And then Halloween 3 and Halloween Ends, I mean, they're about other masks and other people for most of the movie.
They're not even really about Michael Myers.
Yeah. So in that weird way, I mean, he was just following what happened in all the other Halloween movies.
Yes. I mean, the only thing that would have made it perfect is if Michael Myers like showed up randomly in the middle of Season of the Witch for like 5 minutes and then was never in the movie again.
I mean, he kind of does. We get that brief scene in that one moment where Tom Atkins is in the bar in the trailer for Halloween plays.
Oh, Tom Atkins.
So do you want to do your burnt out jack-o'-lantern, brilliant jack-o'-lantern?
Yes, my burnt out jack-o'-lantern was this movie didn't need to exist. This feels like a completely unnecessary sequel, and I mean, from all we've discussed, we knew John Carpenter felt the same way. He's like, because people were like beating down his door to make a sequel to this because it was so successful, and he's basically like, why? The first one is a one and done. It's a self-contained story. You know, I want to do other things with the Halloween franchise. But they're like, no, you have to bring back Michael Myers.
Especially if he's mirroring Black Christmas. Yes. Like, the whole idea is there's just this deranged killer, you know nothing about him.
Yes, and it's like, and that is the weakness of so many of these franchises. It's especially bad in horror. the more you learn about something, the less scary it is. Because the more, it's like part of the problem with a horror movie villain is the more you understand about him, the more you could piece together what's going on. And the more you know about what's going on, the less scary it is. So it's like realizing that Michael Myers has the thorn curse of the druids and is an immortal killer or whatever. Just it retroactively, like you said, makes the other movies worse and lamer. It's like it would be so much better if he was just like an evil force who decided to kill these people and then he disappeared.
Yep.
And it's like he could come back at any time and we know basically nothing about him. And it's like now we know way too much about him. We have like we know so much about him, in fact, that the timelines don't even add up between these movies, and the lore is so messed up that if you tried to piece together a timeline, you'd probably rip your hair out.
I mean, people have tried to piece together. I literally, people will put down that like Halloween 1 and Halloween 2 are like, then is its own timeline versus Halloween 1, Halloween 4, and Halloween 5. Like, it just gets so wild.
Yeah.
Like,
well, okay, so I complained about that. And my brilliant was I actually did go with the soundtrack. I love John Carpenter's soundtracks. I mean, I love the one in the first movie. It's great. But I agree with you that the Michael theme is taken up a notch in this one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, like I told you before, I think Michael is the best slasher just because he has the best soundtrack.
Oh, agreed. It's so iconic. It is the... like I think we said last week, like, I like the Trick or Treat soundtrack is actually really good. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. But man, it takes some doing, and it cannot beat how good the Halloween soundtrack is.
Honestly, it does. The theme does a lot of heavy lifting to make Michael more menacing too.
Yeah,
it's like if you watch this movie with the theme cut out, and it would be a boring guy in a weird mask, slowly shambling after people. But I don't know. Just overall, you want to go with our overalls here?
Yeah. We'll get into our final rating. Our because it's the Spooktacular.
The 2023 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular, Jay.
One and the same. Because it is, we're, instead of rating on ho 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 hilarious, seasonally scary, or you'll be sorry, it's candy, corny, seasonally spooky, or 6 feet under.
Yes.
So Jeff, where do you want to put Halloween 2?
Jay,
of the night he came home.
I was gonna say I gotta put this thing 6 feet under for me. It's has its funny moments, but it's not funny enough to carry the entire runtime of the movie. I believe when we were watching it, you were like, "Oh, this has to be almost over," and we paused it, and there was like 25 minutes left. It just doesn't. The kills are okay. There's a few ones that like stick out in my mind, a few like spooky stalking scenes, but for the majority of the movie, it's a bunch of boring people walking around a hospital and Bud trying to get laid. It's basically the movie. Oh, and Dr. Loomis frantically driving from place to place, doing his crazy rants.
Screaming at police officers, screaming at people.
Which get progressively more unhinged as the movie goes on.
Evils come to your little town, Sheriff. You don't know what death is.
Yes, but it's just like... it feels tired, honestly. Even though it's only the second movie in the franchise, it already feels like it's parodying the first one.
For me, I put it as seasonally spooky. At the end of the day, I do like this movie. I think the hospital setting is great. Would I have liked to have seen John Carpenter's original idea of years later and it's Laurie in an apartment building? I think I've said to you like multiple times, I love the idea of like a high-rise building in some kind of horror movie. I always think that's such a neat idea. Mm-hmm. And I think that would have been really cool for a Halloween movie. And we kind of get that maybe in H2O. Like it's a little bit, it's not exactly it's more of a dormitory than it is an apartment, but like we kind of get a little bit of that. There's just, and there is something to be said about how this like kind of feels like a quicker watch. Halloween's a classic. The original's a classic. But I mean, hand to my heart, like it is kind of a slow, kind of plodding movie. It's it moves very.
It definitely moves at a slow pace to build tension.
Where like this one, it kind of just you're like, oh, like we're moving very quickly. A lot of stuff happens in a very short amount of time. It doesn't feel like it's an hour and a half.
Well, see, this was what I was confused by. It's like at some points this movie feels like it's a really like action filled movie that's moving along fast. And then there'll be like those weird stretches like where we paused it and we're like, because nothing's really happened in like the last 15 minutes. And then we're like, okay.
I think some of the kills are really fun.
Yeah.
And so some of like the gore effects, the Dr. Mixter having the needle in his eye, I think is great. Nurse Alva is like her being dead on the cot and the blood just draining out of her arm.
What was your favorite kill?
I think torn between Mr. Garrett, with the claw hammer in the head.
Yeah.
And I love the like I said, I love Bud's death. Like,
Strangled.
Like even though it's very plain, it's very, but I just love that in the foreground we've got Nancy sitting, or Nancy, we've got Karen sitting there on the edge of the tub, kind of adjusting her towel and stuff like that. And in the background, we just watch Michael walk out and start strangling Bud behind her, and she has no idea. There's something about that that's just very terrifying, that we know what's going on, but she has no idea.
Yeah, my favorite's the claw hammer because it's just so quick and brutal, and the skull crunching sound that they put in was really good.
Yep.
It gave me flashbacks of a few other skulls we've seen crushed.
All right, Silent Night, Deadly Night also has a claw hammer kill. But yeah, this one, I mean, I think later as we go on, not only will we hit the other categories, but like this one, like you said, this one has some silly moments. Bud has like a joke line every time he speaks, but like it's not like over the top silly campiness or anything like that, like some of the other ones.
One of the things that pushed me into 6 Feet Under with this versus Candy Corny was the ridiculousness of the fake Michael Myers being killed and that distracting them for like 20 minutes of the movie.
It is really silly. Especially because like where did he get that mask?
Where did he get the mask? 2, Loomis and the sheriff have been literally hunting this guy all night and they don't remember what he fucking looks like. This guy is not even the same size or have the same color hair on his mask as the other guy.
And then not only a similar mask but not the same, but then also deciding to wear a mechanic's jumpsuit.
Yes, it's like a weird mechanic's blue jumpsuit.
So like, how did he know of the Michael Myers look without even though like literally the kills happened earlier that night?
Jay, it's crazy. It's almost like this is like 3 years after the first movie or something. Oh, you mean like how Dr. Loomis didn't recognize his colleague from earlier in the day?
Yeah, even though it was earlier that day. And my first thought was like, oh, was it a different actress? But I'm pretty sure it's the same actress. Because I was like, oh, that'd be a funny line to be like, oh, I don't recognize you.
Yes, see, if it had been that would have been funny. But no, he's just like, oh yeah, because this movie is way later than we are setting it. It's like, I don't get the point of trying to set it on the same night. It's like, it would have been more of like a trauma for Laurie if he had come back, like a few years later.
That's why 2018 is so effective.
Yes, it's like, she's like, oh my God, it's happening again. Because she's just gotten over it or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, she's finally like settling down with her life.
I can finally breathe easy. And then he comes back.
Yep.
No, this is like literally the same night. I tried to kill you earlier tonight, so now I'm going to try and kill you again.
Yeah, I would really like to see what the original idea was, like, until they forced him to do it at the hospital the same night.
Hey, how about let John Carpenter make the movie he wants to?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like, maybe he's some kind of master of horror.
No, I don't know.
Although, did you hear about the recent interview he did where he's like, I'm not a master of anything. I just want to sit at home playing video games.
Well, I mean, that's why I love John Carpenter so much.
No, he's the best.
He doesn't bullshit you.
All right, well, let's round this out. Every episode we like to take our villain and put them somewhere on a list. Now, this is the first time we've had a repeat villain.
Oh.
So where do you want to? Do you think Michael Myers moves at all on our trick or treat list?
Honestly, if we're going based on the trick or treat list, Michael from 1, I'd say he moves down in power because ostensibly he gets killed in this one.
Right.
The other one, he disappears like a night demon or whatever.
I mean, he kills more people. I think he kills. I think they say about 10 people in this movie, which is more. And I mean, and survives the gunshots. But I mean, I don't think that puts him below Harvest, and that's the only people. Or I guess, or do we put Michael below? Zedediah from Third Saturday in October?
No, he's more powerful than him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he stays where he is. He's not stronger than Pumpkinhead. He's certainly not more powerful than Sam.
No.
Like he stays where he is, but his power level, seems a little.
He seems lower in this one. He seems a little less able to teleport like he did in the first one. And being canonically dead at the end of this movie, well, at least in the writer's mind, makes him seem a little bit weaker than the first one.
Well, let's with that decided. I mean, it was pretty easy, I think, this time.
Yeah.
Luckily, let's round out the Halloween Spooktacular with a little segment we like to call
Garbage Day! Huh? No!
Well, Jay, I'm glad to join you here on the last garbage day of the 2023 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular.
Oh, buddy, we've got all sorts of stuff to try for this last episode.
Oh boy!
Might as well open this first. While we were recording, we got an order from Burger King delivered.
Oh,
of the new
how spooky!
Ghost pepper chicken fries.
Whoa!
So while Jeff's opening that up, I'll grab the other things.
Oh, look at how spooky this box is.
I love
Jay.
the box. I think that's great.
These chicken ghosts.
And then there's some fries. Which, I mean, I don't know.
Want some Burger King fries, Jay?
Not particularly.
How hungry are you?
We got Sour Patch Kids Apple Harvest, which were very hard to find. And then, strangely, we've got Sour Patch Kids Zombies.
Wow.
We're doubling up on Sour Patch Kids. Jeff's trying his first chicken fry there.
Here we go. Ghost pepper chicken fry. It tastes like a slightly spicy chicken fry.
And then, to wash it all down, I've got Barntown's Pumpkin Pie Drips beer.
Oh, boy. You know I'm a Barntown fan.
Yep. I'll also grab one of those chicken fries.
Taking you down to Barntown.
Taking it down to a Barntown city.
Good.
Yep.
It's good.
I asked, they're not doing the Ecto Cooler beer this year, but dang, that seems, I mean, I tried that. That was really good. I like that pumpkin pie beer quite a bit.
I mean, Barntown's never let me down yet.
2 for 2. Now these chicken fries are a little old. Like, you know, as you let them sit, they get worse. And
if you're someone who can't handle a lot of spice, I would say they're probably about what you would want. If you're someone who's used to eating, like, you know, buffalo wings, stuff like that, you're barely going to notice the spice.
they got a little bit of heat on the back end. I like it. I think these were, like, you know, probably like too spicy for my wife.
Oh, is she that kind of spicy?
But like I don't like, these do have a little bit of heat. They're kind of one of those where, like, the heat doesn't bother me, but it's one of those where, like, after I eat one or after I take a bite, I do want to, like, take a sip of something just to kind of, like, after I let the heat sit for a little bit. So there's 3 different flavors in those Apple Harvest Sour Patch Kids.
Okay, I see the third one, I think.
It's I think it's caramel apple, apple orchard, and cran apple.
Okay. All right, I've got one of each.
All right. And then Sour Patch Kids Zombies, which are raspberry and orange. Exciting. Purple and orange guys. They got little Frankenstein-looking zombie Sour Patch Kids on the front.
I like them. Sour Patch apples, good.
You know, as I think I've said to you and some people online have talked about, like, this is the Halloween of, like, because you know, for years October Halloween has been pumpkin spice, like, that's kind of taken over, and this has been the first year of, like, the return of like apple as the kind of the flavor of Halloween. We've seen kind of an increase in apple stuff.
I mean, the Sour Patch Zombies are Sour Patch Kids. Good mid-tier candy.
I think that orange is a little stronger than the normal orange. Not bad.
All right, I'm going in for a Burger King fry.
I mean, those aren't part of the thing. You can just have those.
No, let's test this out. We gotta rank these. Cold, flavorless. What I would expect.
Just what you would expect from Burger King. All right, I'll grab these. I've been waiting to try these Sour Patch Kids Harvest apples.
I think you're gonna like them.
Do I have? Okay, those are the 2 of those are the same. Hold on.
Gotta get that yellow one.
All right.
I would say the Sour Patch Zombies are just Sour Patch Kids, but like you said, the flavors are good.
I think the flavors are a little stronger than normal, which I think is pretty solid.
You get more orange, that's for sure.
All right, I'm gonna try the caramel apple one first.
What do you think of that? He's chewing it. He seems to not be spitting it out immediately.
The caramel's a little, I think the caramel's a little overpowering on that one. You know, I think there was something else we did where I was like, man, that caramel's really strong. I don't remember which one that was. But yeah, and it's not bad. But yeah, there's a little bit more caramel than I think I would have liked.
Was it the caramel apple Tootsie Roll we had?
It might have been. I feel like it was earlier than that. It's hard to remember everything we did, unfortunately, without a master list. I like the cran apple. Okay, it's not bad. I think stronger on the cranberry than on the apple.
Yeah.
Like you kind of get that tartness of cranberry, but it's not
agree.
bad. And then the apple orchard one,
like
I think apple cider.
This pumpkin pie drips is good. I don't know. Does Barntown ship anywhere else besides Iowa?
Oh man, hold on. Oh man,
Oh boy, here we go.
that apple cider one is fantastic. That justifies the whole bag.
That was my favorite as well.
I am taken aback by how good that apple cider Sour Patch Kid was. Like, go out and buy these just for the apple cider ones. That's my take.
I was not expecting it to be that good.
Yeah, like it tastes like apple cider. Like that is so impressive. I don't know. I'm pretty sure Barntown is only Central Iowa at the moment. I think they are doing a pop-up event in Chicago next week.
Oh, okay.
So if we do have any listeners in the Chicago area, find out where that is and go check it out because it's well worth it.
I mean, I know they probably won't, but I think Flick should start stocking Barntown products.
Or someone's my sister-in-law for my brother and his wife for their wedding. We got them tickets to a local movie theater, to like the local kind of indie theater, like a season pass kind of deal. And my sister was like, oh, you know, like she's like, I love it there. You know, they sell beer, they sell popcorn, you know, all the, you know, kind of all the general movie theater fare. And she's like, but I smuggled in a Barntown beer because she's like, that's all I wanted. And so she's like, you know, no one's gonna call me on it or anything like that. But she's like, you know, I could have gotten a regular beer, but she's like, I really just wanted a Barntown beer, so I smuggled one in.
Something about it. Jay knows me. He knows I'm not a beer drinker, but something about these Barntowns.
Same thing for my wife. My wife is not a beer drinker, but the Barntown sours for for all their dessert beers. Like I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I've said it before certainly. They did a strawberry milkshake IPA that was fantastic. Literally was like drinking like a straight like liquid strawberry milkshake. And I was talking with somebody. They're like, "Oh yeah, that was one of our worst selling beers."
Really?
And I was like, "Why?" Like I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "It was my favorite too." And we were kind of talking about it. I'm like, the only thing I can think of is people were turned off by the idea of IPA. Oh, it's gonna have that hoppy IPA kind of taste. No, it literally was a pure liquefied strawberry milkshake. It was fantastic.
Well, maybe we can head out there sometime and I can see what else they got.
No, absolutely. I am more than willing. I'm always willing to go out to Barntown. We'll figure it out sometime. No, the pumpkin pie beer. I mean, it's more than like pumpkin spice. Like it kind of has some of that pastry kind of flavor.
No, it does.
It's got the pumpkin taste to it.
It does
like,
taste like pumpkin pie.
Like it's fantastic. I don't know that it's like my top tier. I think I liked the caramel apple one a little bit better, but
no, I would say caramel apple's still my favorite.
But this one's so my favorite one of all time is they did besides that strawberry milkshake IPA. Last year they did a lemon bar, and it's like you're in a church basement eating a lemon bar. Like that's how good it was. Like if people want to know Jeff's opinion on that pumpkin pie beer, it's already empty.
Yeah, I finished.
And once again, Jeff's not a beer drinker, so pretty impressive. So yeah, ranking today. How do you want to go? Lowest one. I'm
gonna do the
Burger King fries.
I was gonna say Burger King fries definitely got to be on the bottom. Then Sour Patch Kids zombies. I mean, they're Sour Patch Kids. Nothing really special Halloween about them.
I agree. Both of those, I'm right with you.
Then I would say the Sour Patch apples
Okay.
And that's mostly on the strength of the apple cider flavored one.
No, that apple cider flavor is so dang impressive. Like I am blown away by how good that is.
And then I would say the ghost pepper chicken fries, not too bad, especially I would say probably a top tier Burger King product.
If we were biting into them fresh instead of having them
Yeah.
delivered, I think they'd be that much better.
I'm factoring into that. Like if I was eating them after I just went through the drive-through on the way home or whatever, I'd say they'd probably be pretty good.
Yeah. And number one is the pumpkin pie beer.
Yep.
We kind of hinted at it. Do you want to do your top 5 things that we did for the Spooktacular?
All right, you want to go one by one, or you want to go all 5 first?
Just do all 5 of yours. It doesn't have to necessarily be in order. Just your 5 favorite things.
The caramel apple beer, the pumpkin pie beer. I would say the Tootsie Roll flavors, the fall flavor bag that was in there. Those bat gummies we got from the Dinosaur Dracula.
Oh, bugs.
Bugs. Okay, yeah. And then the 5th one. I don't know. We had a lot of good stuff. Honestly, every week had at least one good thing, I think. I would go probably the what are those things called? We had them in the 2nd week. Here, I'll try to remember my last one.
I like you. Apple pie or the pumpkin pie, the caramel apple beers. Those are clearly in my top 2. I honestly think those ghost pepper chicken fries, like, and something nice that's not sweet and like overly overly strong. Like, man, those are really good, and those are I'd rather have those than the ghost pepper Whopper we had last year. I think I do these Sour Patch Kids Apple Harvest. I'm kind of like you said, based solely off the strength of the apple cider alone. Like I am still so impressed by how good those are. And I think the last then I think I do those fall Tootsie Rolls. I think that's my top 5.
You know, I can't remember the other one, so I'm just gonna go with the chicken fries.
One thing I did want to bring up, when we did the It's a Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown cereal, I did pour a bowl of cereal and add milk to it.
Like that one?
Gets worse.
Gets worse.
It's the cereal does not like maintain any crunch, and it was just like pure sog, and just very disappointing.
Well, that sucks.
Like based off of how good
It was good dry.
Yeah, and so I poured the bowl and I was just like, oh, like this is noticeably worse than what we just had. Like, I was very disappointed with that.
Well, can't win them all, I guess.
I'm trying to remember what we did for week 2 at all.
That's what I know. I like something in week 2, but I cannot remember what it was. This Spooktacular has felt like a lifetime.
Hey, listener, go back and listen to the things on week 2 and then post them here so we can remember them.
Go back to the 3rd Saturday in October and tell me what I ate.
And real fast, now that we did that, let's bring in one last thing. We've got the uncrowned champion of last year, or the crowned champion of last year.
You got the Oreos?
Yeah, I was able to get a thing of pumpkin pie Oreos.
Nice.
And we'll see how those stack up against some of the things we had this year. Just to start a little feud between last year's one Halloween episode and this year's Spooktacular.
I got a feeling these Oreos are going to be stacking up pretty well.
I was able to find like a box of them. My son's already like throwing a fit because I hit him, so he couldn't eat all of them.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't been able to find them anywhere. Weird, because you would think Oreos would be very readily available.
And I don't know how many of our listeners follow us on Twitter, but man, I mean, I was able to find those hot chocolate Oreos, so those will be coming down the pipe here at some point. For our podcast. Some psychopath was in the CVS buying all sorts of Halloween junk food or Christmas junk food in October.
I heard about that on the news.
Yeah, what a freaking weirdo standing there in like his black Christmas t-shirt and had like a sleeve with a bunch of Christmas horror movie tattoos on it. Like what a fucking weirdo, just buying Christmas junk food in October.
They say he had an accomplice. He was about the same size as a refrigerator, but it was weird because all he would ever say was blah blah blah. Still great. I mean, I don't know how they make these so good.
I throw it all out. Pumpkin pie Oreos are still better than anything we had. Also the last year's Voodoo. I think I mentioned it last time. I still think Voodoo 4 is better than Voodoo 5.
Yeah, I know. I drank last year's Voodoo before this one.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe last year was better than this year. Although we did have some really good stuff this year. I think overall the Spooktacular has been a success.
I would say so, yes. The 2023 Horror for the Holidays Halloween Spooktacular, Jay.
Yeah, the one and the same. And you know what, listener? Thanks for listening to it. Thanks for sticking with us for all 5 weeks. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're on Threads. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok at horror4 holidays.
YouTube.com/horror for the holidays to watch the episodes, see our cool thumbnail.
Yep. Give us a thumbs up. Watch the in memoriam that doesn't actually happen in this episode.
Yep.
But we pretended like it did. But yeah, give us a thumbs up. Give us a subscribe. Hit the little bell. All that good stuff.
Comment. Tell us what you're doing for Halloween.
Yeah, do that. Remind us what we ate in week 2 and see if it helps jog Jeff's memory of what he liked in week 2.
It might. I don't know. I could go back and listen to the episode, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I don't want to listen to myself talk.
Yeah.
Follow us. Subscribe to us on your podcatcher of choice.
Leave us a 5-star review. 5 stars. Jeff and Jay fat. Quit eating into the microphone.
Yeah, man, you'd think after all these weeks of them eating into the microphone, they would have fucking stopped, but they haven't. These dumb pieces of shit.
Those bastards doubled down.
Man, I hope one of them eats the other one. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide which one's gonna eat the other one.
Well, I think there's only really one possibility.
But yeah, when we see you again in 2 weeks, we'll be back to our normal thing, Christmas horror movies. I don't know what we'll be doing yet. We'll leave that up to the Q app to decide. QUEUE. You can follow us there. Horror for Holidays.
I don't know. I heard a rumor that there might be some kind of Thanksgiving Spooktacular, but I don't know.
Oh, well, we had some name for it, and I put a reverb on it or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or a delay. I don't know. I'll go back and listen and see if we can remember the name. But yeah, we'll try and figure something out for Thanksgiving. But yeah, at least next week or 2 weeks, we will do a Christmas horror movie again, and then we might try to figure something out for Thanksgiving.
You talking about our Thanksgiving special, Jay? Turkeys of Terror?
That's as good as name of any. But yeah, listener, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for sharing us with your friends.
It's been a fun Spooktacular.
Yeah, it has been, and please stick with us as we get back to our normal content.
Also, November. What a month for horror movies this is going to be.
Oh yeah, we got a big slate of stuff coming down the. We got It's a Wonderful Knife coming out next week. Thanksgiving coming out in like 2 weeks. I had Five Nights at Freddy's. It's still technically October, but it's
close. Yeah.
Yep. And then I think you saw Werewolf Santa.
Yes, Werewolf Santa is supposed to be dropping in November too.
The Sacrifice Game. I've not heard kind of anything about that, but that's one that's supposed to be coming out too. That kind of looks exciting.
Yeah. Of course, we got The Nun 2 coming to streaming, Jay.
Oh boy.
So you can finally get caught up on your Nun universe.
Oh man, I might have to. What's the other one? I think Triple Xmas is supposed to be coming out this year.
Oh really?
So hopefully we'll add that to the if I get my copy from Indiegogo, we can add that to the list. That looks like so much fun. Santa's sleigh Santa Claus killing like a porn shoot looks like a blast.
Oh, and a note for any Terrifier fans out there: Terrifier 2 will be in the movie theaters November 1st as a re-release.
I should give it a try. I don't know. We'll see if I do.
Knowing you are not going to like it.
Oh well,
but you could try it.
I will be in theaters certainly for It's a Wonderful Knife and Thanksgiving.
Oh,
so
we're definitely going for Thanksgiving.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that off the air.
No. Let's talk about everything on the air, Jay.
Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Bye.
J is sick. Very sick. Not just in the head this time, in the body.